south until you hear the sound of angry blonde Colombian on Tropical Beach. Coordinates are with you now. Disguises should be in back of plane. You can change on the way. And leave your weapons. Mr. Rubio will not trust smugglers. The guards will shoot you on sight if you are armed.
Paren, esperen ahí. Why can't you assholes be on time for once, eh? Arms out, let's go. Okay, wait over there. They will bring it soon. Go on.
As soon as you go beyond the airstrip, you must be careful. If guards get a good look at you while you are in the restricted area, they will know something is not right. Safest thing is to stay out of sight. information. You can use it with the app on your phone. Now, what do we have here? Have a look in the basement. No need to change the winning formula, yes? Did you see? There, in glass display case, a diamond the size of your fist. This will make our trip worthwhile, yes? Gold. I see. I have made a note on the planning board. Getting through the case with what is inside. I will do some research.
Uncle Luke, 1980s. Your haters crying on YouTube about those copyright strikes. I don't know why, though. Kevin Samuels does the same thing. I'm glad. Now the haters can stop these reaction videos. They need to chill.
Yep.
All right, I'm just going to make this announcement. If you use our content without our express written consent, we will come after you. All right? It's a business. Y'all want to make hit pieces and all this other stuff? You can't make hit pieces without being ready to get hit back. So it's your choice what you want to do. If you want to make more hit pieces on us with false information and slander us because we made a 5-hour video refuting all these claims that were made, and you're going to continue to try to ride that train and make money off our name, cool.
Spencer then goes on to talk about an ABBA and Preach video that lists off some other channels that Fresh and Fit have filed false claims against, during which ABBA says that Fresh and Fit have claimed 20 of their videos. Now, for those of you who don't know the history, this all stems from some drama event that happened a few months ago. Fresh and Fit made some comments about Preach's wife. ABBA and Preach responded, a 2-on-1 boxing match that never happened was teased, and a 5-hour apology video was made. Everyone made those sweet drama dollars, case closed. I made a community post on it where I didn't take a side because I think public infighting in the manosphere is stupid and it hurts the overall message of the group. If people want to throw petty insults at each other, whatever. I don't care about that. However, this time a line was crossed, and that line is criminal behavior and an attack on free speech. Because what we are talking about is not actual copyright infringement. What's actually going on here is that Fresh and Myron are mad that people are criticizing them, and they are using the copyright system to silence people.
Man, and it's crazy how everyone's trying to jump on us for protecting ourselves after all the crazy allegations that were made that were proven not true. So, I mean, if you guys are going to come at us for defending ourselves, then okay, all right, that's fine. There's a line in the sand, my man. These guys are out here calling us horrible things. They're alleging that we're criminals, scammers.
As far as the law is concerned, and as long as they aren't knowingly saying things that aren't true, that's allowed. Welcome to being a public figure. Yeah, it sucks and it's one of the negatives of the job, but none of what Fresh and Fit said had anything to do with copyright infringement. People saying things you don't like is not a violation of your intellectual property, and that's an important distinction.
Hey guys, this is Thomas from Stylized Station, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create a stylized basic smart material just like this. And the cool part about it is that it only takes about 5 minutes to create. Now the first layer is the base layer. We're going to choose a nice light color for this. Due to the gradient, it's going to be darker, so this has to be nice and light. The only thing we're really going to be doing in here is selecting a light color and making sure that the roughness is set all the way to 1. Now the next step is going to be adding edgeware to the material. This is a very important step as the edgeware also adds to the stylized look and feel, and I feel like this is essential to almost any base stylized material. So to set this up, we're going to use linear dodge as the blend, and we're going to drop all of the values except for color. Now the next thing we're going to be adding to this layer is the mask editor using a generator. From here, we're going to make sure that we drop every channel, basically except color, and then we can use these settings to further tweak it and drop the curvature a little bit, just to give it a more subtle look. As you can see, once I drop everything here, the edgeware is very prominent and very noticeable, and you don't want it to be that way. You want it to be much more subtle. So you can see as I mess around and tweak my settings, I end up with a much more, going to make sure that we drop every channel, basically except color, and then we can use these settings to further tweak it and drop the curvature a little bit. So to set this up, we're going to use linear dodge as the blend, and we're going to drop all of the values except for color. Now the next thing we're going to be adding to this layer is the mask editor using a generator. From here, we're going to make sure that we drop every channel, basically except color, and then we can use these settings to further tweak it and drop the curvature a little bit, just to give it a more subtle look. As you can see, once I drop everything here, the edgeware is very prominent and very noticeable, and you don't want it to be that way. You want it to be much more subtle. So you can see as I mess around and tweak my settings, I end up with a much more softer edge to the material. Now the next and final step is the most important part to this, or one of the most important components of creating stylized artwork. It's the gradient. Now we're using an overlay blend to create the gradient, which is going to put the material on top of the previous material. It's important to deselect everything except color again, because we don't want any other values to be messing with this part of the material. Now we're also going to be choosing a darker color for this, as I mentioned previously. That is because as we're using a lighter color at the top, you almost always want to make sure that as the object gets lower and lower, you're descending to a darker color. Once we're happy with the darker color, we're going to create a black mask on the gradient material, and then add another mask editor through the generator. When you've created your mask, don't forget to invert the main parameters as well. And finally, the final step to this is to increase the opacity of the world space normal. Typically I go around anywhere between 0.8 and 0.9. This drops the gradient down to the base of the material and gives you the natural and stylized look of the gradient. From here, you can start to play around with the rest of the settings now that you've got a basic idea and the base material set up. This material is a great base, but it's not going to work perfectly on every single object. Everything's going to have different edges and different curves and different positioning. So it's up to you to understand this material and be able to tweak it as you like. When you understand this material, you can bend it and you can use it to apply in almost any stylized situation. This is a material I use for the base to almost every single one of my stylized materials. And as you can see here, I'm only tweaking it to mess around with the feel of the edges and the gradient. That's it for me, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. This was super fun to make. I'm really excited to see what you guys will make with this. I'll see you in the next video. I know what you're thinking. Environment art is hard. And you'd be right, becoming an environment artist is no small feat. With the multitudes of software you have to learn, coupled with all of the different workflows for each program, aspiring environment artists definitely have their work cut out for them. A beginner environment artist has to learn modeling, sculpting, baking, UVing, texturing, VFX, and lighting and composition. And on top of all of that, we still need to learn how to use Unreal Engine to put it all together. So I decided to do something about this. Welcome to the Environment Artist Survival Kit, an incredibly in-depth guide to environment art that was designed for beginners to help them get over the frustration of learning new workflows, and to show you the exact steps you need to take to start creating your own beautiful worlds in Unreal Engine. But this course is a little different. Blindly following instructions from a tutorial isn't a very effective way to learn. The Environment Artist Survival Kit was designed so that you aren't copying a scene another artist has made. Each student will have time after each lesson to go off on their own and use what they've learned to create their own worlds unique to them. And in true Stylized Station fashion, I am super proud to announce that all 13 hours of content are going to be available for just $49 forever. This is a course intended for beginners, so I really want to make sure that everyone is able to afford this course. And not just that, for the 3 or 4 people who still haven't gotten the 3D. The Ghibli films have been such a massive source of inspiration for me and my work. I've decided to spend some time to... I made the 3D coloring book for people like you and me. For people who are struggling to become the artist they know they can be. For people with full-time jobs, and for beginners who are too afraid or intimidated to even start. The 3D coloring book is for people who are looking to change their lives for the better and pursue a hobby or career in the game art world that they thought wasn't possible. With hundreds of free professional level assets to practice on and new texturing tutorials being added every week, the coloring book has become a great tool to help beginners and hobbyists gain the confidence that they need to tackle their own projects and to give people like you and me the skills that we need to take our texturing to the next level. And this week in the 3D coloring book workshop, I'm going to share with you how to easily approach texturing your armored characters in Substance Painter with only a few simple layers. Now, this is only a small section of the tutorial, and the full tutorial is available in the 3D coloring book workshop and on Patreon, so you can pick whatever platform you're more comfortable with. The next stage of your life starts today. Let's get started. And just like that, the cloth and decals are done. So we are on to our final texture, and it's been so quick so far. It is the metal. Now I want to make this stylized metal as well. So we're going to be going through all of the steps that you need to know to make a stylized metal texture. So right here, I'm messing around and experimenting with colors, and I recommend that you also pause the video right here and start messing around with the colors as well with a fill layer just to see the color palette that you like. I end up with a very light blue just to contrast the red as well. Something like that. And a lot of this video is going to be me messing around with the textures. Right here, I'm experimenting with a plastic look. If you put the roughness around 0.3 or 0.4, you get this really cool stylized plasticky look. Pressing C on your keyboard and hopping into the base color channel is going to show you a better idea of how this color is going to look. So first what I'm doing is adding a gradient, just like last time. Add a fill layer, add a black mask, and the position generator. And I'm going to again make sure to draw the user's eye by creating a darker point at the bottom and bringing it up as it goes to the top a little lighter. And next, just like every other layer, we need some depth to it. So let's go ahead and add some ambient occlusion. Let's add a fill layer, right click black mask, add a generator, and then go ahead and add the ambient occlusion, and make sure to invert that as well. So you start highlighting just like this, only the edges of where the polygons connect. Choose a darker color, and I experiment with the red, see if I want to make the rust because it is metal. But overall, this is up to you, and I would recommend using the base color channel to start experimenting with it to see the color that you like. Next, let's add some grunge to it, just to mess with the roughness a little bit and to break it up. So go ahead and add a dirt layer, fill layer, black mask, dirt generator. Choose a nice dark color, and use the base color channel like I'm doing by pressing C to take a look at how it's going to actually look without the lighting or the reflectivity or the mellowness affecting it. So once I choose a nice depth that I'm happy with, go ahead and select a color that you're happy with. And something like that looks really great. You could even stop here, honestly, but there are a few more layers that I want to do. But I just want to show you guys that this is the power of PBR and how easy it is to make some amazing assets. This was like, what, 4 or 5 layers. It's great. So next, with stylized art, it's always important to make sure the edges are highlighted so that they pop. With metal, you can go ahead and use the metal edge wear generator. So add a black mask, and then use metal edge generator. You can use the fill tool to select the base color and then just desaturate it slightly so that the edges pop out and you've got a nice accurate color as well. Since those edges are worn because of wear and tear and people have rubbed it or whatever of use, you can always go ahead and drop the metal or drop the roughness as well to break up that roughness even further. And for people wondering, roughness, stylized roughness, on the low end is always around 0.3, 0.4, and on the high end is always 0.8 to around 0.7, 0.8. So stick around there and you're going to have a nice stylized roughness level. Now we're almost done, so let's add one more layer with a black mask, and we're going to add again the metal edgeware generator. This time we're going to mess with those curvature settings just to get a small fine detail right on the tip of the edge of that bevel. Just like that, by pulling back the wear level. And then there we've got great edges that are popping perfectly. That looks fantastic already. So you can remove the colors, everything else, and mess with the color if you want. But for even something like that, in my opinion, that looks great. And you've got some nice color variation with multiple layers of edgeware. And that's how you do it easily. Even adding a single extra layer of edgeware like this makes such a huge difference when it comes to metal. It almost looks hand painted when you go to the color base channel, and that's exactly what we're going for.
Well, I do not hear any brains being blown out, so they are not there? They must have begun the job ahead of schedule. Try to find some clue to the location, plans, drawings, coordinates, anything. Send me the photograph and I can cross-reference. Just what I needed.
Okay, and just like every other texture, to wrap this up, create a fill layer and let's add some baked lighting to it. So make sure to turn the blending mode to soft light, and then right click, add a filter, and add the baked stylized lighting filter. And you can see it adds some great color variation coming down from the top where light would be shining off of it. So no matter where you place your asset, in what environment, you're always going to have, it's always going to be very well lit and have great color variation. You don't have to rely purely on the lighting of the scene. Now it's baked into the asset itself. And that is a wrap. Go ahead and go through all of the layers and tweak them, mess with the roughness, do whatever you want to do, create different color palettes, because now you can, because you've created a fully PBR and properly masked out asset. You should be very proud of yourself for how far you've made it, and I am very proud of you. So that's it. That is how you create a stylized PBR character in Substance Painter. I hope you take a lot of what you've learned and are able to apply it in all of your future projects. I wish you the best, and I will see you guys in the next 3D coloring book workshop tutorial. Take care, guys.
It's like she's bragging about it.
Of course, why not?
Like, look at me, I'm scamming. Look at me scam. Y'all don't want to be like me?
Drew, what do you think of that kind of guy, and what do you make of the situation?
That type of motherfucker to me right there, love one, to be honest with you.
$90 million contract.
He was just trying you. He's a professional. Just as much as there's professional hoes, there's professional tricks.
Okay.
You gotta
whatever
understand that game, baby.
You just said
they
that I
know
wouldn't
how
be
to
able to
play
do
it.
it,
No,
but
but
I
they
did
know how
that.
to play it. That was candy money.
I did that already.
For him to turn around.
Alright guys, you're looking at the thumbnail, you're looking at the title of the video, y'all already know what time it is. It is time to get active. Guys, much different conversation today, but I think it is incredible.
Hey guys, Henning and Morten from Flip Normals here. In this video, we are going to be talking about smart materials in Substance Painter and how people are pretty much abusing the system and not using it to its full potential at all. What we're seeing a lot is that you have people who, they get their hands on Painter and they just start going crazy. You know, they go in and they just drag and drop some smart materials onto their objects, and they're looking at this and being like, this is super cool. and yeah, it is super cool. These materials which ship with Painter, they're phenomenal. But one of the problems is, particularly if you're a student, is that we've seen this actually where you can actually identify which smart materials different people are using. So if you're reviewing a show reel which has textures, or a game reel or whatever it might be, now if you're hiring a texture artist, you don't want to be able to identify what presets they're using, because you're not hiring somebody for the purposes of drag and dropping smart materials.
Drag and drop a mask, there you go, that's the job done.
That's it. If an asset took you 5 minutes to paint, you're not going to put that in a reel. So this here is kind of to talk about that. Talk about smart material abuse and
leave the smart materials alone.
Yeah, how to use more hand painting and observation and more storytelling instead of just go crazy drag and drop.
Yeah, because like we've talked about these things a lot, but each object that you're texturing or you're sculpting or whatever you're doing to it has a story, and it's very important to try and convey that story in whatever you're doing. There's a reason why if you use the machinery smart material that it looks like that, but it's not going to apply to all objects, because not all objects have been through the same stuff.
No, exactly. There's such a big difference if you have it's a brand new fire hydrant, or it's a fire hydrant which has been there for 60 years.
Yeah,
it's not the same one. So I'm all for using materials or smart materials as a base, because why redo something which has already been done? If you can get a base of steel by dragging steel, and cool.
Yeah,
that's a great start. But we're going to be looking at something which a lot of people screw up, which is, they make a basic material like this to make some red paint, to make it pretty shiny, to give some height. And now you go and you make a mask for it. We assume you know all this. If you don't, we have an introduction to Painter coming out.
Oh, very soon.
Oh, very soon. So this is the starting point. I see a bunch of people get to, where, you know, they have an asset, and very quickly, you know, essentially within 30 seconds, you can get something which it looks pretty cool, but clearly it's not done. You see here that the distance between all the curvatures here is exactly the same, and everything just looks very uniform. And that's because it's based on a curvature map, which is uniform. This doesn't take anything into account, such as the storytelling. This purely looks at the curvature maps and makes a material or makes a mask out of that.
Yeah, and this is what this video is about, trying to get away from relying too much on everything being procedural. Proceduralness is awesome for iterations, but not everything needs to be completely 100% iterative. Like, most of what we do needs to be bespoke. So starting off with a base that's procedural is amazing, because it means that you can get up to a really high level really quickly, and then you're supposed to do your job afterwards.
Exactly. And if you're on a project and you got to texture a bunch of different objects which are similar, you have 40 fire hydrants, and you need to texture them. I mean, definitely spend some time on making the procedural element as good as possible.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, then you go in and you add individual variation. So for this thing here to exist in real life, like this, that's somebody has gone over and scraped off the paint
perfectly,
and then it's been out in the weather and just had a tiny bit of variation to it.
Yeah,
this stuff just doesn't look like something like this. Stuff has variation in it. I think we mentioned this before in one of our videos, but when we went to Hong Kong some months ago now, we saw this with a lot of statues. People have been touching their feet and heads in certain points, and they were far shinier in those areas than the other ones. And that's purely storytelling. That's because people believe by touching these areas it brings them luck or whatever it might be. So first you got to think about the story of your object.
Like, does a fire hydrant bring you good luck if you keep rubbing it on the top?
Exactly.
Maybe.
There might be things like that.
Yeah.
So let's look at some specifics what we're talking about. So first off, whenever we're doing this, I would just go in, add a paint layer, and then just clean up the mask in certain areas. You can see here that there's still like remnants left of the red material on the very metallic chains here. So we can use this tool to just drag and fill in these layers. This is a really, really cool tool. So set this to the polyfill mode, the mesh fill mode, and then we can just start to drag in. You can see what it's doing. It just takes a polygon object and fills it in.
Excellent for cleanup.
Excellent for cleanup. Because, you know, you most likely don't have spill of paint in these areas.
Right at the tip of the chains.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not.
So, then we can go back in again. And let's just check. We need our shelf back, because we need to use brushes for this. So one brush I really enjoyed using is brush 2. All the dirt brushes are pretty good. You don't want to use something like the soft brushes for this, because this is just too generic. You want to have something which has some bit of texture in it, like this.
Yeah, and then like you consider different parts of in this case, fire hydrant. You know, the base might be, I don't know, more damaged because people kick it, or maybe there was a car that ran into it from the side once. A lot of people work around the valves if they need to open or close them a lot, so you know those areas might be more damaged because there's been wrenches and stuff around it.
Yeah, so areas which would be damaged would be around here, like this here. I mean, obviously this is a more simple example. You wouldn't have perfect metal and then just paint. You would have a bunch of dirt and grime.
Yeah, and then some of the steel would be rusty now.
Exactly. So, but this is just to have a clear example, a simple example showing you that you really just have to go in and add variation to where stuff would be. So for instance, around this area, you know, you can probably paint it all away. Maybe there is some variation there, but there really wouldn't be a whole lot.
Yeah, not this perfect circle of exposed steel.
Yeah, so what you might see is that, let's say this side here is facing the street, there might be more rust in this area, or maybe the paint is more broken because there's been cars have gone in and splashed water onto it.
Yeah, and then like on some sides, maybe where the valves are, you would have some kind of dripping, like, so that would create rust and some dirt and grime as well.
Also, this depends heavily if this here were to be in New York City or in a place like San Diego, where, you know, it's the amount of rain is just vastly different. The amount of sun. So one hydrant, it could be the exact same hydrant from the exact same factory, would have a lot more sun damage. The other one would have more water and frost damage, for instance.
Yeah, and then that's again another thing. Like, you want to consider, okay, in terms of sun, how much sun does it get and where does it get it from? It wouldn't be equal everywhere. It's like when you go out and like look at these old recycle shops and stuff. They always have these, for some reason, blue posters in the store, just because the sun has damaged so much that blue is the only color that remained. Obviously, that's not going to happen as much to like a heavy-duty paint like the one you see on a fire hydrant, but you might still see paint starting to fade. And you might see some chipping on the paint on one side because it's gotten more sun there. So there's a lot of stuff to consider. It's not just like, oh, there's a fire hydrant.
No.
Like Henning's doing here, like, okay, yeah, here's the chain. The chain has probably been rattling in this area. That's why the paint has started to chip off more there. That makes sense.
Yeah. You really just got to think about the story. I really like to think about texture painting as when you're painting textures, you're not just defining materials. You're painting a story, and every single object has a story. Maybe the story is it's a brand new iPhone from a Chinese factory. That's still a story, and that would show that it's brand new. Or it could be an iPhone which is fallen 10 stories down and is absolutely smashed.
Yeah, what do you have to think about? Like, you can think about it like this. That each object, whether you're doing hard surface or you're doing organic, like you're doing characters or stuff, it's the same thing. Like they have a personality. You know, their personality in terms of the objects is just what's the environment they've been in. How has that affected them? What kind of fire hydrant has it become now? You know, is it an angry, depressed teenage fire hydrant, or, you know? So there's a lot of factors that play in.
Owen listens to My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, just got out of its Paramore phase.
So already, let's try to obviously pretty shitty paint job here, but you know, we just want to break it up a bit more and make it feel a bit more realistic.
Yeah,
because individual variation is really the name of the game when it comes to texturing. I can't stress how important that is.
And what you could think about is for something like this, maybe this used to be a yellow fire hydrant. So maybe there's multiple paint layers, you know, and then some parts of the steel is newly exposed, so that would be more shiny and steel-like. Other parts have been exposed for a long time, so maybe they're rusty. So there's a lot of stuff that you can go through. It's not just, okay, let me just, because I think one of the issues is, a lot of people think about, especially for metallic objects like this, it's like, it's one layer of paint and then it rusts. No, this it's so wrong. Like, it rusts in different stages and not all the paint wears off at the same time. You know, it's there's so much variation that you can think about and add to your objects. It's not going to be the same everywhere.
I really enjoy doing this, adding just multiple layers of like here, you, like Morten said, maybe it was painted yellow underneath. You can paint yellow.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing there as well. Like, you have the additional bump underneath where you can still see, you know, some stuff. You could have that being like the bubbling of the paint when it sort of starts to come off because of too much sun. So it's like it starts to have oxygen in there that sort of like rises a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's so many of these small little things that you can do to your objects to just give more life to them.
And then you can also supplement this with some materials here. If you want rust, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel here with rust. You know, you can do this, and you can put this under here, maybe between these two.
Yeah.
So now instead of the metal, maybe you're now just seeing straight rust. Or you could go in and do the same thing. You know, you could add a mask to this, hide all the rust. You can go in and just try out different things. You know, you can paint, and now you can just get some of the rust back.
Yeah.
So definitely don't just drag and drop smart materials onto whatever it is you're doing. Think about the history of it. And then, you know, use it as a basis. Really use it as a basis. but think about the story. Try to get reference if you can. Couldn't find a whole lot of reference for the specific kind of fire hydrant, but you know, source it from real life and source it from what the object has gone through.
Go find your own fire hydrant and you know, maybe threaten it with a knife and like, oh, I'll make you a story, and then yeah.
I do this actually a lot whenever I go around.
Threatening fire hydrants?
Yeah, threatening fire hydrants. Just take them with me home. I know I go around the city and just take photos of materials, particularly when prepping for this painter video. We've been doing that introduction, because then you can really just look at the differences in material. You see this a lot specifically with metal, which has paint on top of it. Just you can get some very interesting variation going on with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically it for this video. If you want to see more painter content, let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, one question I have, or specific interest, is do you guys have any cool brushes, any favorite brushes you like to use when you're painting? Because there are so many of them.